Welcome back to Late Night. We're here with Hillary and Chelsea Clinton. I don't want to miss the opportunity to ask you about some things in the news. With the Dobbs decision, I think in the days after, it seemed like, and maybe this is the risk you put yourself at when you take a snapshot of a very small period of time, it seemed like people were saying the Democrats were caught very flat-footed, like they weren't expecting it. But in the months since, it does seem like Republicans are scrambling, especially ones that have won primaries are now trying to back off their decision. We have a lot of Republicans saying it should be decided by the states. We have Lindsey Graham then coming forward and saying there should be a federal ban. Do you feel like this is, an opportunity, obviously one that came at a great cost of this decision, but as the midterms approach, how do you feel this is going to, move voters one way or the other?
Well, I can only say based on what we've seen so far, it seems to have encouraged a huge number of women and young people to register to vote. The numbers from across the country are higher than I've seen in a very long time. We also have 3 elections, a special election in New York, the Kansas election on the issue of choice and abortion, and then the congressional election in Alaska. And in each case, the pro-choice position won. And I think that's a pretty good snapshot because obviously it went literally across the country. So, look, I think that the Republicans have been scrambling only because they can't quite believe the blowback. I mean, it's one thing to say for years, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and people not take you seriously, because who would have ever thought that women's rights would be rolled back? And that
we did.
Yeah, well, you and I did, but that's because, we take these people at their word because we know that they are part of a relentless movement to literally turn the clock back on not just women, but gay rights, to enhance all kinds of, power for corporations and others and limit individual freedoms. So if people take seriously what the court did, what is happening in states, and what Lindsey Graham just did, which was to really spill the beans, we're going to put in a national
15-week abortion ban.
Yeah, ban, no matter what you might do in your state, then they should turn out and vote for people who, want to really protect the right of people to make their own decisions, whatever that decision might be. That's what they're really fighting for.
And I think, Seth, that to be a woman right now is to be political, because politicians have decided that they know better what we should do with our bodies than we do. Mm-hmm. And I think that women, and thankfully the men who believe that women should have agency over our lives and ourselves, don't want to go back to a time where it's actually politicians and not women and their doctors making choices.
Absolutely.
Intimate choices.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about this. I don't know if you've noticed in the news, but there's been an issue about handling classified materials.
Oh, I heard about that.
We've had some fun here because we can't help but find a certain level of hypocrisy from certain people, including the fella who handled this classified material. Because back in the day...
so long ago.
Yeah, so long ago. I don't know if you've ever heard this. He thought you should be arrested.
Yeah, and let me start by saying, just for the history books, do you know how many classified documents I had? 0. And so, you can't make this up. I mean, the lies they told, the, heated rhetoric, lock her up, all that nonsense, it was totally political, divorced from reality. Now we have a serious problem because if you just read, and I don't have any inside information, what is being found, nuclear information about an ally or an adversary, incredibly top secret, the kind of stuff, Seth, that when I was Secretary of State, when they talk about secret, top secret, and then special compartmentalized and all of that, sometimes, usually it was a man, usually a military officer, would come into my office and would have a handcuff that was attached to a suitcase in order to show me something that was so secret, he literally had to have it tied to his hand. And so it was locked. And then he would open it, I would read it, I would sign that I'd read it, and he would take it back. That's what some of those folders on the outside say was the kind of information in it. And so I don't care what political party you are, but come on, cut the hypocrisy. This is a threat to our national security that somebody would actually have in his country club storage room, his desk, his bedroom, top secret information. And you have to ask yourself, why? What was he going to do with it? Who was he giving it to?
What had he already done?
Or what had he already done to it? And so let the investigation go forward and let's, find the facts. Unlike those guys, I'm not saying lock him up. I'm saying let's just find the facts and follow the evidence wherever it goes.
Well, I think if he realizes he did something wrong, he'll probably turn himself in and say, lock me up.
Right.
If I know the man, he's...
He's one to take responsibility.
He will take responsibility. If there's one thing we know about the man. Hey, Chelsea, this is very exciting, especially as someone with 3 kids of my own. You wrote a book inspired by having 3 of your.
I did. So I wrote Welcome to the Big Kids Club because when I was pregnant with our third Jasper, Charlotte and Aiden had all these questions like, well, first they asked, is it going to be a boy or girl? And I said, I don't actually know the answer to that because we're going to be surprised. But then they asked other questions like, when will the baby talk and walk? And will the baby poop like on day 1? And why don't babies have teeth? And I'm like, because it would really hurt if you're breastfeeding. That's actually not the answer totally. But so I decided to write a book because I thought, well, if we're having these conversations, we're probably not the only family having these conversations. And so I wish I had had this book when I was pregnant with Jasper, and I'm so thankful to Tanya for the extraordinarily beautiful illustrations, and just so proud and excited it's out in the world.
It's very exciting. Thank you both for making the time. It's always a pleasure to see you, especially together. Hillary and Chelsea Clinton, everybody. Gutsy is now streaming on Apple TV+. We'll be right back with Kate Berlant, everyone.